Well, and look, it was really very concerning to me that I make it watchable for an audience. Watchable and find somewhere, which is rare in a Kubrick movie, someone that's sympathetic in any shape or form. You know, he doesn't do sympathetic characters that well. And so I was determined to make him, without cheating, to make him at least watchable.
And apart from our relationship with Alex being a complex thing, the film itself, I think, is extremely complex. There's a lot happening.
Oh God,
in it.
Yeah.
And when you were making the film, were you aware of the?
Oh my God, I lived the whole day with the book in my hand. That was the Bible. I'd even say to Stanley, "Hey, what are you doing? Look, you can't do that." He'd go, "Oh, yeah, really? Okay, okay. Well, what should we do?" I would say, "Well, you know." This was what was so great, really, about Singing in the Rain, you know, which just sort of came out of vapor, really, and landed there as a present, because it anchors the movie, and really it's an amazing device, actually, if you really think about it. You know, it's something that a screenwriter would go, hallelujah, because it gets us over the rape and beating in such a way that it's palatable. No?
Yeah, I mean,
come on, you've got to smile. Viddy well, little brother, viddy well.
Maybe. So before I throw it open to the audience,
I can see I'm not getting through to you here.
I'm not going there.
Okay, all right.
But that's a good segue into my final question before I throw it open. The language that the Nadsat gives Alex a kind of a sort of poetic and almost like a Shakespearean
Yes.
kind of thing, and I think that's what gives him this ambiguity and the.
Well, you know, it's no coincidence that I really admired very much Laurence Olivier's performance and film of Richard III, and you know, I saw it as a schoolboy, and I was blown away by it and his bravery, and even though I am absolutely not the same kind of actor, work in the same way as him at all. I'm completely diametrically opposed, my method to his. It's just a different way of getting there. But, you know, he was brilliant at, you know, the nose and just disguising himself in, you know, a look or whatever it was, and a walk and a voice and all that. And, you know, I don't do that normally. I work inside out more. You know, he's more outside in. And so, and Alex is you know, he's very much inside out.
Okay, so who has a question out there for us?
It was exhausting. Of course, it was exhilarating. I remember once the crew had worked such long hours, they actually took a vote and decided enough was enough. They were leaving after a 14 or 15-hour day. That was it. And I was secretly thrilled that they were taking the vote. And I kept saying to Stanley, you see, you've worked them too hard, and, you know, I said, Stanley, you know, you've got to give people time to recharge. Of course, I was talking about myself, but there was the crew, you know. And he went, okay, fine. Oh, so beautiful. I went, very good. So I went to get my coat, put my coat on, grabbed the script. I was literally walking towards the door, and he goes, Malcolm. I went, yes, Stanley. He went, no, we can rehearse tomorrow's work. And I stayed another 2 hours going through the work for the next day. But that was him, that was him.
But
and
apart from the length and the reshoots and that kind of endurance, the performance is incredibly muscular, and it's in a very physical role.
Physical.
So was it physically demanding?
Yeah. I mean, when you have electricians coming up to you and going, "Hey, Mount, he's trying to kill you," you know that. I got injured a few times, where the actor comes out and goes, "Lick my boots," and sticks his foot. Stanley said to him, "Well, that's you've got to, make it look," and he put his foot through my rib cage, and so I had a blood clot in my rib, and had to go to a doctor and get one of those right through the rib cage, which was not fun. That was that. The eyes, the scratched corneas,
yeah.
Those. That was basically it. So, and Stanley he'd call up and say, "How do you feel?" I go, "Well, I'm okay, but I'd probably come back to work in a couple of days." He'd go, "Make it a week." I go, "A week?" He'd go, "Yeah, we're not really ready with the next set, so let the insurance pay." Told you he was a good producer.
Yeah, he's definitely a good producer. Who else has got a question?
It's funny because when Burgess saw the film, he said to me, "I'm really glad you made that choice because I'm from the north and I wrote it in a northern timbre. I mean, I just made that choice because I didn't want the sort of cockney, whiny thing. I wanted it to..." Probably the wrong place to say that. Didn't want that, I wanted it to sort of have a sort of a warmth but an edge. And I don't know, that was just a decision.
Did that come early in the...
Yes, it came up very early, like take one when I spoke. But I'd kind of... Stanley's clueless. He wouldn't even know what the hell I said, I think I may have said to him, "I'm doing it northern." He went, "Oh, what's that?" I don't know. So, and I'll tell you how clueless he was about that. And he wasn't clueless about many things, but I am in the hospital bed for the end sequences. It's the very first time the eminent doctor, surgeon, walks in. He's of a Sir, knighted or something. So Stanley thought it would be a little bit cheaper and better to have one of the stuntmen play this eminent surgeon. So I'm literally in the bed, and he walks in and he goes, "How you doing today, little Alex? All right?" And I went, Stanley? He comes over, he goes, what's the matter? I went, "He's supposed to be an eminent surgeon." He goes, "Well, so what?" I went, "Jesus, did you hear what he said?" He goes, "No, well, let's do it again." Same thing. And he just came over and he just went, "Okay, shut down for the day." And then the actor playing the minister, Anthony Sharp, he had a friend and he brought him the next day to play the other. It was just one line, basically, but, it has to be right. You can't, it just sort of was weird. But Stanley is not aware of stuff like that, he wasn't aware, so. Look, when you're working on a movie, you're working with movement. The movement is as powerful and as extraordinary as the spoken word. In fact, more so. I mean, I remember more movement from performances than I do text. Especially somebody like Jimmy Cagney. There's the man of the moment. But just the way the guy moved, you knew the character. You knew who the man was by the movement, and that's very important. And I always try to do that with my characters. And the way they move should really telegraph, subtly, one hopes, what their character's about, you know, and just one can make a snap decision about it. But I think movement is, to me, is as important as just learning the lines, you know, just so. I wasn't aware, he's obviously not going to tell me that I was the only one that could play the part as he felt, because, of course, my price would have gone up like a rocket because I could have held him to the fire. And so, of course, he kept that very much to himself. You know, I was just a young actor, and I was just amazed that I was actually thrilled, of course, that he'd seen If and got it. And, you know, when If came out, you probably don't remember. You're all way too young. But it caused, in England, a sensation. Look, here was a movie that literally took a dagger and stuck it in the heart of the establishment, in the thing that they cherished the most, their fucking public schools. And that's what was such a joy for us, was it was just a lot of fun doing that stuff at these public schools. And of course, Lindsay, who was very naughty, that he gave his, we went to his school, that, you know, he'd been to Cheltenham College, and he actually gave the headmaster a fake script. And there was no shooting at the end or the Parents' Day or anything like that, of course. And the headmaster gave permission that we could use it. And, I mean, I don't know what he was doing, but, I mean, we were on the bloody roof with Bren guns and God knows what, mortars going off. And when the film opened, the headmaster who saw it at a special screening was, of course, more than livid, and sent Lindsay a letter which sat on his mantelpiece, I think for about 6 or 7 years, unopened. And I used to tease him by going, come on, let's open it. Let's see what he had to say. He goes, no, don't touch it. He'd kind of get really irritated. But that letter was actually leaning on the ashes of Rachel Roberts, weirdly enough. I don't know why I told you that, but...
It's interesting. If Lindsay Anson's If was a knife to the heart of the establishment,
yeah.
What was A Clockwork Orange?
Well, that was a real fuck you to the government, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you know, it's so weird because when it came out, I was absolutely mortified because, you know, I went to New York for the opening there, and that's what I remember particularly because, you know, I sort of crept into the back of the theater. It was Cinema One on 3rd Avenue, and you know, it was like the most prestigious house in New York, art house kind of. And I'm sitting at the back, and there was total and utter silence. Not one person laughed. There was, when the film ended, nobody moved from their seats. They sat there aghast. And I just thought, oh my God, they hate it. They hate it. And at one point, a woman rushed out, and I heard threw up in the lobby. And I just thought, wow, the people really... But of course, when it first came out, if you can imagine, you know, there was, you know, BBC One. I'm not even sure we had BBC Two yet, but an ITV, that was it. And so there was this movie that had this look and this language and this music and this extraordinary things going on It really, it caused a bit of a sensation. And the first time I kind of really felt anything about how it had gotten through to the audience, because, as a film actor, you never know. You just, you kind of do it in a vacuum, in a way, was I was driving around Hammersmith that roundabout, underneath the flyover and past the tube station. 4 guys came up the steps dressed in white with bowlers.
Wow.
And I'm driving, I went, what? Fuck. Oh my God. So then, then the press it was unbelievable. You know what the tabloids are like in this country. It's a joke. They were on it, like, it's violent, it's causing,
And they attacked Stanley Kubrick, but
They
what was it
attacked
like for you?
every.
Did they attack
They,
you?
look, they attack him. They attack me. I mean, listen. I'm in every frame of the damn movie. It was such nonsense, really. To sort of go crazy about the violence and forget about everything else. But okay, I get it. It is violent. I don't know whether it's that violent today, but we'd had Sam Peckinpah. We'd had these movies of his that now that is a ballet of violence. I personally think they're brilliant movies, but I was just sort of amazed that they just, that went crazy just about the violence, and every day in the papers there was something. And any gang thing, Clockwork Orange was blamed for everything.
Yeah. It's
Do you
funny.
remember that?
It's
Too
funny
young.
because watching it now, it's not the violence. I was too young. Thank you. It's not the violence.
That waft over there.
But it's not the violence now that's the most shocking
No.
thing. It's for me, when I was watching it, it's obviously the kind of pornography and then juxtaposed with images of Christ. And that's what feels really dangerous now. Because that is strong stuff.
Why? Because you're a
No,
Christian.
If you knew me better, you'd understand that that's not the case. No, I think because
don't know
people
what
don't
your
really
personal
do
views
that
are,
now.
but
People,
I could see that. I think that some of the cutting of the dancing Christ is one of my sort of more favorite sequences, and that Stanley does. It's amazing little sequence. Believe it or not, I had in my mind for that Eric Morecambe.
Yeah.
And so here's this guy sitting there and doesn't get it quite that he's been found out, And of course, Patrick wheels in and goes, "Food, all right. Try the wine."
Gotcha.
And Alex is, like, and it's just so much fun to play because, so what did I do? I just naturally, I'm getting the vibe now that, something's up. So to distract, I just pick up the bottle and read the label, whatever it was, Santa Stiff, or whatever it was, and read that, and then and then they started asking questions. I think that's what happens. I can't even remember because I haven't seen it for a while. But and then of course he feels the center of attention, and he starts spelling out that's sort of just comic fun, and that's it. And so it's like this trap, that he's in, and it's just fun, for the audience to see the trap close. It should have been open the gates, but it didn't, because people thought Kubrick had manipulated the performance, and it's only recently that people go, wow, he's actually really good in that movie. And when you see Kubrick's other movies, you can judge on performance, And that's what was so really weird in a way. After If, it was much more. I mean, that was a total game changer for me because, you know, I was working at the Royal Court on £15 a week, and from that to, and I'll never forget. You know, they were screening If, sort of like for. There was certain screenings for people to talk about the movie or whatever, word of mouth kind of thing. And so I was actually walking down the King's Road, and this girl passed me and shrieked, which kind of scared me a bit. I was like, what did I do? And I mean, I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. And she turned and ran back and literally jumped into my arms and said, "Oh my God, I saw the film." And I'm going, "What film?" Because it hadn't opened. And she'd been to one of those screenings, and I thought, wow, people really like that film. I mean, I loved If. I thought it was a fantastic film. But you've just seen Clockwork Orange, so we don't want to talk about that.
Well, I'm going to wrap up by saying,
great.
Of all of Kubrick's films, of all of Kubrick's films,
Nice watch.
It is a nice watch. Thank you very much.
Is it big enough?
It's pretty big. I've got big wrists.
Yeah.
I would say of all of his films, it is the one where the central performance is absolutely key. It would not have worked without your performance, and so hats off to you for one of the best performances we've ever seen. A Clockwork Orange is released this evening across the UK. Please help us out by going on social media and telling as many people as you can to come back to the cinema and seeing it on the big screen.
You mean tweet?
Tweet, Facebook, whatever it is, Instagram, all of the different
Facebook.
things.
Is anybody on that anymore? I thought that was over.
But
Instagram.
It's a BFI release. We'd really like you to help us out.
Thank you all for staying and being so
Thanks to
nice.
Malcolm
Thank you.
McDowell.
I really appreciate it.